The main point of the article, My President Was Black by Ta-Nehisi Coates, published for The Atlantic in 2017, was how Obama was a symbol of Black people's everyday extraordinary Americanness, and more broadly, how he appealed to white citizens without alienating Black citizens. It seeks to unveil the complexity of racism, specifically the ways in which it influenced Obama's presidency and Trump's election. A key passage summarizing the ways this article explores the point can be found on page 6, where Coates writes, Barack Obama's victories in 2008 and 2012 were dismissed by some critics as merely symbolic for African Americans, but there's nothing mere about symbols. The idea of symbols is important, and the explanation of their power is part of what guides Coates' analysis on how the same country that elected Obama elected Trump. The first bit of contextual research that I did for this piece was on how Obama met with rappers to discuss criminal justice reform. This example is briefly mentioned by Coates, and I wanted to investigate it further in order to contextualize it in broader, more tangible action taken, and also to see what the outcomes of this meeting was. So this article talks about how it links to My Brother's Keeper initiative, which Obama is deeply integrated with, and some of the pardons that he oversaw during his presidency. The next piece is on the Russian interference with the elections. A lot of this article aims at understanding how virtually the same population that elected Obama elected Trump. So Coates cites racism as the biggest factor, but this was also a very internally focused article, and later on, after the article was published, a lot of information about the Russian misinformation campaign came about, so I wanted to investigate further specifically how this influenced Trump's election. And the last bit was public opinion of Obama during and sort of after his campaign, and it's just to gain a statistical backing for the general ideas propagated in the piece. And this specific source contains a breakdown of Obama's approval ratings by race or ethnicity. Coates clearly has a deep respect and to some degree admiration for Obama, who is the explicit subject of this piece. And the article is, after all, about Obama's success as a Black president. So white supremacy and racism gain explicit prominence as a subject, only really nearing the second half of the article. However, it still is a subject. And towards this, Coates speaks of the raw, horrible truth, using specific descriptive language, yet most often lets evidence speak for himself. This is particularly clear on page 43, which contains lists and lists. Some of it is highlighted of evidence in the different ways that racism was and continues to run wild in the country. So the interpretive lens of this article, or that of Coates more specifically, is assessing Obama's cultural success and success as an icon, specifically inside of the United States, and it's less concerned with tangible action than he might have taken outside the state, or even within the state. And personally, my personal lens and biases that would influence my reading of this article is that I've read it multiple times and I've used it as a source for other academic work, so I'm not extremely skeptical towards the facts and evidence presented. I'm also very fond of the author, and his political views line up with a lot of mine, so I'm not keen to pursue falsification of any of the more nuanced analysis that I might come across in a second or third reading. One thing I would like to point out about Coates' writing is that it feels extremely true and it's very easy to read. He seamlessly integrates evidence and analysis, flipping from personal narrative into a broader narrative of the entire country. This can be seen on any of the pages, and particularly on page number 7, which starts for some not insubstantial sector of the country and continues on from there.